Hey, Last Placers, just a heads up before this video starts. This episode is a review of Ahsoka episode 3, 4, and 5. Episodes 1 and 2 are audio only. We were having some video issues at the time. So go in the description below, click on our link tree, and whatever you listen to, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcast, we're everywhere. But go check out those episodes before checking out this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome, fellow Last Placers, to another episode of LPF Debrief, where Chris and I talk about comic books, TV shows, and movies. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing the great, the amazing Ahsoka TV show that is on Disney Plus, written by Dave Filoni. Multiple directors, because as you guys know, we did miss a few episodes. That's totally on me. It's been a crazy week, and at some point, I will tell you guys all about it. But it's been an interesting week or two for me, so I wasn't able to get the things. Just keep in mind, I should always bring my mic everywhere, and I'm going to do that from now on. So, but we're here to give you guys a review on 3 episodes that we missed, which is going to be 3 to 5. So again, if you guys don't like spoilers, go ahead and watch those episodes. We're going to do all 3 of those episodes, so there might be spoilers in all of them. There's definitely going to be spoilers in episode 5. So when we talk about that,
those are out everywhere. So be careful.
Yeah. So be careful scouring the internet. But yeah, we're going to talk about that. And yeah, so we're going to get right into it. So because there is a lot to cover with this show. And first and foremost, I'll just start. And yeah, this is everything that I've wanted. Because I will say this, and I've said this on record. I've said this plenty of times. I've said this. Chris can attest. I've said Dave Filoni is the greatest Star Wars mind for the last 15 years. I've always said this. I mean, Chris has only known me for 6 of those years, but I think ever since Chris has known me, I always speak highly about Dave Filoni. And I think it's one of the reasons why, a lot of people watch Clone Wars, a lot of people watch Rebels. When I talk about Star Wars, I always tell people to start with, I say, forget the prequels and start with Clone Wars, start with the Rebels, and then go, I have a whole timeline for how I think people should start Star Wars. And the reason why is because Dave Filoni's work is not as people are seeing it now in a live action, because I get that some people don't like to see things in cartoons. They feel like, it's for kids or whatever. That's not the case for Clone Wars or Rebels. But he literally has the greatest storytelling that we've seen, period. It's not even a question anymore. There isn't anything, and I do truly feel that you have to watch Rebels in order to just Clone Wars and Rebels are I feel like just to have those emotions tied to what we're getting now is so important.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because you're in all the feels with this is literally a continuation to Rebels. And we're getting that, and Dave said that that's what it was going to be, and he didn't lie. That's 100% what this is. This is a continuation of that story in every facet that you can think of. And we're going to get into the episodes. But Chris, so far? I know you've watched them all too, and you're speaking from that perspective. But just before we dive into any of the episodes, what is how are you feeling after 5 episodes now of this?
Bro, it's been every week. It's been a while since we've had a show where literally last night I was leaving work. There's an overnight crew that's coming in. My friend Jake's on there. He looks at me. He's like, "You need to get home as fast as you can. You need to go put it on." he's like, "This episode's really good. It's fantastic." I was like,
and before
okay.
you continue, this episode, and this is an episode that they knew was going to be this good, because if you got in early enough, you could get a ticket to go watch it in the movie theater.
Oh, shoot.
So Disney, the AMC and Disney, Disney Springs, they were playing this episode particularly in the movie theater.
Oh man,
So
I kind of wish I went
like
to that.
Disney knew that it was going to be this good.
Yeah.
Like, and this one episode 5 at least was directed by Dave Filoni. So, and this is that whole thing where, and I'm sorry, I'll get right back to you, but this is that whole thing, that whole myth where people are like, oh, he just does cartoons. Like he can't, like, you know, he won't be able to replicate that. Bull crap. Okay. Because he's been able to, every episode of Star Wars live action that he's been able to direct has been fantastic. The Mandalorian episodes that he's done were great. Episode 1 of this was fantastic. Episode 5 of this was probably literally the best thing we've seen. And I told my friend immediately after watching this episode, I was like, that did more for me than any of the prequels or any of the sequels of Star Wars. Like, it really felt like I was in that old, like the original trilogy. Like, and I will go, like, I'm just want this, because now that was so good, I needed to finish just as strong. And he spoiled us. He spoiled us with that episode because he's not doing any more episodes. He's not directing any more episodes. He did write them all, but he's not doing any more episodes. So it's like the next 3 the next 3 episodes are going to be directed by, 3 other people. And one can only hope, right, that they're going to be, but again, they're all written by Dave, but go ahead.
Yeah, continue on. Coming from Rebels, it's up there with Andor. Andor was probably one of my favorite Star Wars things. I do like Mandalorian. You guys know Boba Fett's my favorite character, but they did him dirty. But Mando kind of, like last season, the more people think about it, they're like, you know what, that one was a little bit stale, but that's okay. It gave us more in the story, getting ready for Ahsoka. But this one just kind of, I think it brought in like Star Wars fans. This is some of the best Star Wars stuff that we've gotten in a while. The lightsaber fights we were just talking about before starting the show it's some of the best fighting that we've seen. It's really entertaining. And going off of the cartoon, you're right. It is a continuation. There's parts where I've paused the show and explained things to Bree of like, okay, who's Jason? I explained who Jason is and all this other stuff. Oh, they said this name. Who is that? Oh, well, this is so-and-so, stuff like that. So catching her up. If you finish Ahsoka and you're like, man, I'm hungry for more. I agree with Alan. Go back and watch the Clone Wars series. I've gone through that series 2 or 3 times. For cartoons, man, it's like we did this on the normal LPF show where we were ranking our top favorite shows. Our top shows were Avatar is The Last Airbender is my top show, but like Clone Wars is up there of things I've rewatched, right? Besides anime stuff, like cartoon wise, those are my top cartoons that I love to watch. But the show overall has overmet expectations every time Ahsoka's on the screen. Me and Brie look at each other, we're like, I can't believe I met her. Every time
I gave her a hug.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy still. It still brings a smile every time I think about it. Every time I see her, I was like, well, I was in her arms, not the other way around. Okay. I was in her arms. I was in her arms.
Bro, so, she grabbed, and it wasn't Alan being like, oh my God, she grabbed him like,
yes,
come here.
If I could go back and relive that moment every day for my life, I'd be happy.
Yeah, I'd go back and yell at that photographer. But anyway.
But I agree, man. Like, and I like, again, like I said, Chris can vouch for me. I tell everyone to watch Clone Wars, watch Rebels. Clone Wars, like for me, I think Rebels personally is the perfect TV show because I feel like Clone Wars at the beginning does have its hiccups, especially when the first couple of seasons were a little bit out of order
because they started off in Cartoon Network and it was
a little all over the place. And I always say once season 3 hits though, you are now starting the best Star Wars story. Like from that going into Rebels is the best Star Wars story for me, period. There is like, and I'm talking about like better than the original trilogy. Like that's the light that I hold this TV show to, because I really genuinely believe that the character development that we get in a TV format that show gives us, those two shows gives us, is nothing like we've seen before.
Yeah.
But even though Anakin and Obi-Wan are not even the main characters in Clone Wars, the relationship in that TV show is better than their relationship it is in the prequels. It shows it to so much better light. Like, you know what I mean? It shows how that relationship functions so much better every time you see them two on the screen in the Clone Wars TV show that the prequels could not replicate. Like they could not do it. And that's why, again, I'm convinced Dave Filoni is the best Star Wars mind. Anything Star Wars related, and I've said this before, needs to go through Dave Filoni. Like, I don't care what they have to do. Dave Filoni needs to be the Kevin Feige of Star Wars, period. Like, it just needs to happen. I don't care how it needs to happen. It just needs to happen. Yeah. There is no more excuses. Give this man the full reins. Like, and it doesn't, and he does make us wait, and that's fine. If I have to wait for shows like this, I'll wait 2-3 years. I don't care, because this is making it like I was literally at the end of episode 5, I was in my chair just contemplating what I want. And we're not even like, we haven't even seen the main villain yet.
Yeah.
Like, just put like in 5 episodes, right? Think about how we've complained about, like, you know, some Marvel shows. We've complained about other shows where like, oh, you're not getting to the point fast enough. Like, we have not even seen Thrawn, but we still feel that he's very much present, right? We feel it's a threat, right? Like, it's still a threat. Them carrying out their mission and trying to find him, we are scared of that situation, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're like, and you can see it within all the characters, right? But they also give you that little bit of hope, because it's like, well, if we find Thrawn, we might find Ezra, right? So you can contemplate with both sides, and it always giving Ahsoka a constant battle, right? Because Ahsoka's in the middle of a battle because a lot of the things that she walked away from the Jedi for is currently happening, right? Like, she's feeling a lot of overwhelm. Like, there's choices that she has to make throughout this show that you can see is the things that Ahsoka always is contemplating, right? Like, do I do this? Like, is it worth, blowing this up or destroying this in order to not find Ezra ever again? But, like, you know what I mean? Or do I do that to see if we can save Ezra, because we know he would probably have done that for us? But, like, she also knows that Ezra was content with his decision, right? So, and that's when you bring in characters like Sabine, and for everyone in episode 4 who was like, oh, why'd she do that? If you know anything about Sabine, that is very much her character.
Well, I mean, this show has made Sabine look like something like let's just start with I'm just gonna clear up episode 3 real quick, right? Because there was something that I just want to mention. Her shooting in the ship for the first time, I bursted out laughing because Bree, I put in my quotation marks in my notes. I put Bree asked me, she's like, what is she, a stormtrooper? Like, what's going on here? So I laughed really hard. Episode 3, they're still trying to get together. Huyang is trying to get them to work together more. They're like, hey, you guys need to listen to me. If you guys don't work together, it's not going to work. Like, we're screwed. We have to figure this out. But going into episode 4, where things really start getting down, it was just how quick of like the judgment. Me and Bree have gotten so much into the show that the judgment is like, hey, I need to make sure that, Ahsoka's asking her, I need to make sure that that, hey, Ezra wanted this. This is what he wanted. He saved us all. Like, I have to know that you can put your feelings aside to keep what he did, a thing. To understand. And she's like, well, you don't trust me, blah, blah, blah. 5 minutes later, give me the map. Here you go. I was like, yo. It was like, she's been gone for 2 minutes. Ahsoka got kicked off the cliff for 2 minutes. And you're already like, yeah, take the map.
Well, that's the thing, too. But, and and we've, like I said, especially if you've watched Rebels, we know that is Sabine's character. She is very much a action first, think about things later, and then go, oh snap, like I messed up. Like, you know what I mean? Because even when they showed it in episode 3, when she's like, or episode 2, when you're basically like, hey, so the map stays here. What was the first thing she did? Took it off the dang ship. Like, you know what I mean? Like he sets these things up so you can see that person's character, even if you haven't watched Rebels. But we've known, if you watch Rebels, all of these decisions are just something that Sabine does. She never makes the right choice, or at least what it seems like at the time. Now, she could have a plan. She usually is very much an improvisative person. So it's very much like she was like, you know what? This is the best case to not die. Let me give over the map. I can find Ezra, and then Ezra and I will figure it out from there. Like, you know what I mean? But she's one of those people who looks at how the outcome can work, but never looks at how it may not work. Because what if they go over there and Ezra isn't there? What if, something happens to Ezra? Like, then her plan is crap, because now you got 2 people you would have lost to in a battle already, and Thrawn.
Well,
so
as of right now, I put that she has doomed the galaxy. Like that's the situation we're in for friendship. And I hope when Ezra shows up, he's gonna be like, "What the hell did I say? Why are you here?"
Sure, no. Yeah, he's gonna. Ezra's definitely gonna be excited. Yeah, and then be like, "What the hell?" Like, exactly.
What's going on?
Like, why are you here? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? You're not supposed to be.
And Ahsoka's going to give that face too. When she sees Sabine for the first time, she's going to be like...
We know. And speaking of the face, Rosario Dawson just such a good job at giving that Ahsoka smirk and the Ahsoka kind of like, really? Like, kind of face. It's perfect. But yeah, especially episode 4, which was titled Fallen Jedi, which... perfect title, but for multiple reasons, right? Because even when you get to the ends of that episode, but that lightsaber battle, even the one she did before she fought Skull, was amazing. The one when she was in the room and she did the high T, high five, basically like the Anakin pose, like all that stuff was just like you. And then this is what I mean when you notice someone who is just a fan of Star Wars. Like, Dave Filoni, as great as he is, he's also just a fan of Star Wars, and he knows how to make us feel a certain way when he delivers these things, because we're like, oh snap, look at that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of your reactions when you're watching it. And I think he did such a good job at portraying like the writing. And he didn't direct episode 4, but let me get the name of the director for episode 4. That was Peter Ramsey, who directed episode 4. And it was such a good, it was so good. The like the shots in that episode were really good. And like you were talking about, the lightsaber battles have been fantastic. That was one of the ones that were great, like, because the whole like samurai stance
and the nightstand. Yeah, because that's what I was gonna bring up too, because it's we're used to, back in the Star Wars stuff, it's like when they start fighting, they're like, oh, you have the style of Dooku. Like, I can tell he trained you. Oh, you have Yoda's style and all this other stuff. The fact that they got rid of that and they're like, okay, she definitely has the samurai style. She had smoke pellets. Yeah. She threw out the smoke pellets. And the fact that Balin, as soon as he grabbed 2 hands and he's big and broad and you could tell he was a knight. It was just a classic fight of like, okay, this is
a clash of styles.
Yeah, it's a clash of styles, and it's really cool.
But it also makes sense why those 2 in particular would do different styles from their masters.
Yep.
Because those 2 have been, Balin being a mercenary and Ahsoka kind of being in this gray Jedi, this gray thing where she's picked up different skills besides everything that she's learned from Anakin. Because remember, she didn't finish her training with Anakin, right? She went on her own path. She did her own things. She learned multiple styles from multiple places, which is why Ahsoka is very comfortable fighting in very different styles, right? Like, and I think that's another thing that this show shows such a good thing at, and what Rebels and is that, Ahsoka, you don't one of the advantages Ahsoka has is that she's not predictable, right? Because she can fight so differently, and she can fight. And now that we're seeing an older version of her, a more mature version, you can see how her calmness, right? Because I've seen some people online complaining, "Oh, Ahsoka's not that she's not as fast as like Ahsoka was," but Ahsoka was at such a younger age in the TV show
Yeah.
that and what I loved about this last episode, it showed when she was fighting, when they go to that scene when they go back,
Her
you see
first
how
mission.
fast she's fighting,
Yeah,
right?
which was
So
cool.
like yeah. So we'll get to that, but I'm saying just in comparison, going back to that fight in 4 is basically like you can see the difference, and she has to adapt, right? She's not going to be as agile, or she realizes that she doesn't have to do all those moves, but she's still capable of doing a lot of the moves she used to be able to do, which I think is just perfect writing, and it's perfect to see the growth in the character, right? Even when she went on top of the ship, right?
Yeah.
And she kind of had like that Anakin kind of bravado, because it's very much something Anakin would be like, "Why are you going in space, dude?" And he's like, "Well, because I can do this." And Ahsoka has very much that attitude, which is why it's cool. And even when what's his name? Hugh
Ewing.
When he mentions it, and he's like, "Yeah, well, you guys are from a long line of like Jedis who weren't are not common, you know what I mean, like between Obi-Wan and between Luke and well, he doesn't know Luke, but between Anakin,
Yeah.
it's like this is not this lineage of Jedis are completely different." So it's just cool to see how this show continues that feeling of seeing how different they are from everyone else, because you are dealing with a different kind of Padawan for Anakin, who had a Padawan and then never finished her training and stuff like that. And it's just really cool that they are diving into that in such a deep way.
Yeah. Going into episode 5 though, seeing Anakin again, right?
Yeah, I mean,
they've had
that was
interviews
the end of
4.
The ending of 4, yeah.
The ending of 4, we see Anakin, people start freaking out, but 5 starts with Anakin. And that feeling, I mean, for months they've been asking him like, "Hey, we heard you're in Ahsoka," and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Nothing.
Right?
Yeah,
and
no idea.
It's kind of Anakin's comeback story, right?
Yeah.
From the prequels and everything like that. He is doing such a great job, especially in this show, when he, for the first time, says snips to her. Like, I lit up.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. I love, I gotta give applaud to them, because the flashbacks that we have are from episodes that we've seen in the cartoons. The first fight that she has, the first mission that they have is in Clone Wars. The Fall of Mandalore is in Clone Wars. Stuff like that. So we get to see that, and it doesn't feel, sometimes whenever they switch it to live action, you feel a difference. Like, this feels kind of weird. It just felt like we've already been a part of this whole time. So it was a smooth kind of transition into it. That
just goes to a credit to Dave Filoni, of course.
Yeah. So it's the other thing I wanted to point out too. The girl that plays young Ahsoka, right? They're using her for a lot of stuff, because she was young Gamora in Endgame.
Endgame, yeah.
Yeah. So
Disney's just keeping her.
She's like, get in there.
Yeah. Keeping her where she's at.
Yeah. But seeing him run around doing the same, like, bro, he was moving quick. The way he's delivering everything, it's just, it feels just like the cartoon brought to life, and it's been feeling it. The feeling's amazing.
Yeah, it's just a great redemption story for Hayden Christensen, right? Because as much as it's ironic, right? Because obviously Vader has his redemption story, and then you know what I mean. But Hayden Christensen got so much hate for those prequels when they came out, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't know, because internet wasn't as big as of a thing when those were coming out. But there was a lot of people who used to boo him when he used to go to things, and this man And we should, and I'm glad people are showing their gratitude. We should be forever grateful because of the things that he had to go through as being in Star Wars, and something that he's not necessarily in control of, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yep.
this is why direction plays a big part in movies and things like that. But imagine, he had to deal with so much. And this was a guy who still showed up to Star Wars celebrations, even when people weren't coming to see him, right? And like, where he would have like empty spaces and people wouldn't like, and for him to still be doing that. And he's also always so into people who go see Star Wars. And when people come to see him now, he still has these amazing interactions. And he's always been a fan of the series. And the fact that he's been able to get this light that he deserves, right? Like I feel like he deserves this, and he's earned it, right? Because he's dealt with so much of like from the public back then, and now everyone's praising him, and he's doing such a great job at it, right? And you can tell he still enjoys it and he loves it, and he loves that his character can now get these redemptions. Because even in Obi-Wan, where you know what I mean, the TV show where that those things were able to happen, and he was able to get those things like like kind of get his foot back in there, and Mandalorian. So it's nice that he's able to get that. So even when at the end of episode 4, like I was just like, oh snap, like this is like obviously I knew because there was no way. Now I didn't think what we got in episode 5 is what we were going to get.
Yeah,
but I knew he would show up because there's no way you're doing an Ahsoka show without him showing up. It just wouldn't make sense. Like whether it was, I thought it would be more of a Force ghost kind of thing,
like a small conversation.
This was a Force ghost, but like very, very, very detailed and very aggressive. But like it was still really like it was still amazing. And then also to have again going back to even with that episode when we start episode 5 and that whole conversation starting, and he's talking about again giving Ahsoka a choice, like do you want to live or do you want to die, right? And it's very much his two personalities showing, right? But it was so cool because he kind of hones both of them in, right? Like just to prove his point. But also just having Jason be able to hear the lightsabers when Hera couldn't, like because obviously if you guys know Caden, like you know what I mean, like all of it just goes full circle where it's just like, well, and then he's just like, oh well, he's sensitive, like he has special abilities,
like, hey, his
right?
dad,
Like you know what I mean, because of who his dad was. And just knowing his story again, and if you haven't watched Rebels, like that name doesn't affect you as much as it would someone who has. Like we know that story. We know one of probably the greatest farewells that have ever happened in Star Wars, also between Hera and him. So it's like, you know what I mean? Also, fun fact, I don't know if you knew this, but you know that Hera is Ewan McGregor's wife.
Yes. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
So it's it's just all of that coming together, and then Hera trusting her son, right? Because it's like, well, this is something that Caden probably would have told her, but like, and she would have had more confidence. But because he is very much like, oh, I want to do this, like I want to do that. And he's like listening, and he's like, no, you don't hear those things. And like she finally kind of reconnects herself too, right? Like with that because of what her son said. And then she's like very much like, oh snap, like I can hear it. And she's like, yo, circle back, like, doing her general orders and things like that. But we go into again what you were talking about, some of the greatest fighting we've seen, like that lightsaber duel between
Ahsoka gosh, doing the same spin move, the back spin, everything. I was amazing. Like, oh my god.
Like going into that whole lesson where he's basically teaching her everything again, and just having that whole conversation. He's like, you see, that's your problem. You're not like you're not understanding what I'm trying to tell you. And then the Vader music coming in. And
the flashes of him, like when he walks and it flashes and you see Darth Vader, I was like, this is
when he walks into the smoke and you see the lightsaber change. And then when he comes out of it, when she goes back into the thing, and then he pops that out, and you're just like, it's red. And then you get the Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, episode 3. Anakin,
it was just like, come on, like we are just doing chef's kiss right now. And if you notice, what was really cool when they first are sparring or dueling, if you notice, Ahsoka has her original lightsaber.
The lightsaber,
it's not
yeah.
hers,
Mhm.
right? And then Anakin has his, and even when she's doing the flashback, she still has the green. But when they come out of that, they both have the lightsabers that they last had.
Yeah.
So like Anakin has the red, and then you know what I mean. It's just, I mean, you can't write the story better, like you know what I mean. And just seeing the way they fought when they did that, when he does that shot when it backs up and it looks like just them, like it looks almost like a video game, which in the best possible way,
Yeah.
like not like a bad thing. Like it looks so cool when that camera backs up and you just see them kind of just going at it, and it's like, yo, I was literally watching that just jaw drop. I was just like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, you know what I mean? So it's very much like and then again the lessons, right? The lessons that your Ahsoka's basically like, you know what, I'm not going, I don't want to die. Like I'm going to do things my way. And yes, and that was Anakin's point. Like Anakin's like, okay, cool. Like, you know what I mean? Because when she bests him, he's like, yeah, all right, cool.
Well,
like,
because she's
maybe
still
you
feeling
will
those
live.
feelings too. Because
Absolutely.
whenever she looks at him and she's like, you know, you're dark. For people that don't know, right? That area that they're in, what is it called? The world
Yeah.
between worlds or something like that.
Yeah, I think that might
It's
be
in the
another thing, but
yeah, but he's that's not the first time they've been there, right? Ezra was there, and technically Ahsoka was killed by Anakin, by Darth Vader. And she gets pulled in by Ezra, and that's the first time we see that world. And it goes into where in the cartoons that we don't see, but they're implementing now in the live action is basically the religion of Jedi. So you see the Force, you see what they're going through, the different animals that they can talk to, the cosmic animals and stuff like that. So being there in the first place is just kind of one of those crazy things of like, okay, she's about to fall out of it. So that's why Anakin's there to wake her up and be like, hey, you're not done. And I need you to figure this out.
Like, do you want to live or do you want to die?
Yeah.
Like,
so
basically,
but the fact that that moment where he's like, you know, she looks at him and she's like, you're Darth Vader. Like what?
Yeah.
Like you did all this bad stuff. Like what the heck? And he's like, you're still on that? Like I'm already gone. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. We're talking about, right? That's what I liked. It was just like, he's like, this is what's wrong with you. Was that? He's like, we've already finished it. Like we've already established it. I realize what I did, and me realizing it is why I'm here with you.
Yeah.
So
I need you to understand and need you to fight, continue to you know, and that's one of the best things, right? It's like, because even when they have that flashback and he's like, oh, you're going, he's like, you know, oh, I need to help breed a soldier. Like, you know what I mean? But it's also like, he needs both. Like, and he knows that, right? And he knows that into it. It's like, you need to continue your warrior's path, but also you still have to keep this, like, you have to be very close to where you're still in order to know what's right and what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I think that battle does such a good job at showing exactly that. Like, you need to be able to fight like, when it's time to fight, you need to be able to put all that aside and fight. Like, you know what I mean? But also, we don't want you to lose your way while you go through that. Like, you know what I mean? And that's the thing that he's showing her. And it was just, again, so good to see that. And then just, you know, that the whole dialogue between them. And then obviously she's like, you know what, I'm going to, you know, I choose to live. And then like, that was kind of like the send off of, all right, like, cool.
And the transition back to life, her knowing that that we know that she was in the ocean drowning.
Yeah.
So the fact that like whenever she chose to live, to bring her back, the water filling up. Yep. Oh my God.
It's so good. It's just chef's kiss. And then again, if you guys watch Clone Wars, the end of Clone Wars, which this is going to be a spoiler, but remember, well, the new end of Clone Wars, because we actually got that finished, thankfully.
I would say start there, season 7. Like if you don't have time to watch everything, because
no, you got
so
time.
much media.
You got time.
I don't know.
You watch everything. You watch a couple episodes a day. You're fine. Okay, whatever you're watching is not as good as this. Okay, I will say it right now.
He sounds like a One Piecer.
All right, listen. No. One Piece. I cannot let people do that. That's way too much time. I mean, it's worth it. I will say that, but I'm saying that that's way too much to. But these are only 30-minute episodes. You can watch 2 in a day. If you watch 2 in a day, you're going to be finished by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is the world between worlds for that. But yeah, so between that and then the whole thing happening with, Hera, and then you're kind of getting that Rebels vibe, like the crew is coming back together, and then you see the relationship that Ahsoka has with Jason, where she's basically just like, oh, like, you did a great job and all that stuff. And then he obviously was like, are you gonna train me? He's like, no.
He's like, you know how to build a lightsaber? He's like, yes.
Yes.
Can you help me build one?
No. He's the best.
Dude, he's
the best.
I love him. I love him because he's the shade that he's been throwing.
He just throws it so subtly.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah. And in that moment that he has too, where, which I gotta say was a cute moment. Ahsoka kind of coming to life. She's smiling more. She gets back in the ship. And he's like, oh, they know how to get us to Ezra? She's like, no. Yeah. He's like, where's it going? She's like, I don't know. And he's like, what? She's like, I mean, we're going somewhere.
It was hilarious because the first thing when they start talking to the Pergil and she's like having that conversation that obviously, and I think Ahsoka knows more so of where they're going, but I think she's also just a troll, right?
Yeah,
She went when he's like, well, go in. And then she's in, and then he's like,
well, get in the ship.
He's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not trying to get in there. Like, what are you doing? So, but of course, the Pergil, which is was a huge part of Rebels, to see them again and to see that, like, and we've been seeing little subtle things of them too, because in Mando, remember, Grogu sees them. And so, like, it's just been thrown in little hints. And this is exactly what I want from Star Wars. The fact that the galaxy now feels so much bigger with these TV shows. And if you read the books, it feels even bigger. But this is the things, like, because the galaxy is too big for us to just focus on Skywalker. Like, you know what I mean? It's too big of a, they need to be intertwined, of course, because obviously, but the galaxy is too big for us to not be able to tell great stories from other people's point of view, right? So here, like I said, the formula needs to be you bring in new characters and you tie in a little bit of the old and you'll have good stuff. Like it's proven. Like Mando worked that way. Ahsoka has worked that way. Andor has worked that way. Like Rogue One, like Episode 7, all of the times when they just focused on these new characters and building, sprinkling the old ones, it's all worked.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that should be their approach. The next approach is Dave Filoni has to be in charge of every decision that's made Star Wars wise. I don't care. At this point, I don't care about anyone else.
Yeah.
Anyone else's opinion does not matter to me. I need Dave Filoni to sign off on every story written.
To clean up some loose ends that I had some questions about. Obviously, the episode ends with Ahsoka's going to find Sabine. So they get in the mouth, they hype it. But beforehand, she sees the piece that was cut in half, and she's like, "Oh, they may have left an impression." Is impressions always a thing, or is that from Jedi Fallen Order? Because in Jedi Fallen Order, you find a lot of it gives you the background pieces. So I was like, I think they're.
It's bringing in the game. It's been a thing.
Oh, in the books.
Okay,
yeah, true.
Yeah.
Okay,
but again, it's just one of those Jedi lores thing, which Fallen Order kind of took also, like, from the books, and it was like, oh, I'm going to do this. But
it was a good way of telling their story of like,
but more people will know it from that. Yeah. So which is cool too. Like, you know what I mean? So I think. But that's one of the things, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that everything is feeling connected.
Mm-hmm.
And the continuity is really important right now. Like, everything feels like it matters, right? And I feel like for a long time, where our TV shows, our, the cartoons, the books, they didn't feel like they mattered part of the story. And now that the way they've been doing this has been making it feel like it all matters.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, I said it multiple times, Dave Filoni needs to be in charge of everything because he is the person who does like he reads all this stuff. He dives into the Star Wars world like no one else does. And he was also like literally right hand to George. Like, you know what I mean? I have issues with George's like directing skills and stuff like and screenwriting, but that doesn't mean that George's mind needs to be like he knew this he created the universe. There's still things he knows that we don't, that he may not be able to articulate the way that he wants to, but Dave Filoni clearly can. So I think that's what needs to happen. And I'm hoping now if we get these, we have 3 more episodes left and we have a strong finish that more people are going to start to realize that that's exactly what we need, right? Like is for this path, it's a, you know, these great stories, as long as you're writing great stories and you're implementing some things here and there, people will come. It doesn't have to only be focused on one particular set of characters. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone doesn't have to be related to that character. I know even though Ahsoka's, you know, the Padawan of Anakin, it doesn't necessarily mean that story is evolved around her. So, I mean, evolved around that particular thing. So I think that's what needs to happen. And it's happening here. And I feel like we're getting these shows. I mean, between this and Andor, and again, if you haven't watched Andor, please do it yourself a favor. Like Andor is also fantastic, and I'm also a big Rogue One fan. So, which is why I want to go watch that new movie that he actually directed. And created,
the AI movie
creator.
Creator. Yep.
Because Rogue One is Rogue One's my second favorite Star Wars movie. Like, and it's really close to being number one. I still have to give it to Return of the Jedi, but I mean, not Return. Empire Strikes Back. But but so it's just like, you know what I mean? This is what we need. And everything about this has been fantastic. So between those 3 episodes before we wrap it up, Chris, what was your favorite? I think I know where you're going to go, but go ahead and let
Do you?
I have a few.
I'm just going to go off of episode 5 because that's so fresh in my mind. I have honorable mentions this time. 2 honorable mentions that I gotta throw out there, right? Ewing talking about Anakin. They're like, you know, Ahsoka's master. She's definitely like her master, and they're like, whoa, how was her master? He's like, and he pauses. He's like, he was intense, because he knew what was going on. When we get episode 3 Anakin, and to me, it was awesome to see, but it's heartbreaking because Ahsoka did not get to see what he turned into. She just saw the aftermath. She never saw him like with what Obi-Wan saw with the red eyes and everything like that. Like that turning point, she didn't get to see. And I think if she saw that in real time, it would have been soul crushing.
Well, remember, if you count Clone Wars, she sees a glimpse of it. Because remember,
you're right. You're right.
The helmet.
You're right. Okay. And then actually, no, that one was the episode 3 is my favorite moment. I was going to bring up the other honorable mention is Carson is an MVP. The Asian X-Wing pilot. Bro, he's so used to stuff because he's like, he just wants information. So that moment where he's like, what's going on? And he's like, well, Jason, that's what, you know, Jason has powers, blah, blah, blah. We're going out to check because he feels something. He's like, okay. He's like, that's all I want. That's all I want.
And then I also love going back onto that when Hera's like, I don't know, stall them.
Oh my God, like, bro. He's sitting there, he's like, why is it always me? Like he's
and he's like, well, you can't go in there because, you know, General Syndulla's like, you know, this reason. And he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna tell you, you're not gonna believe me, but like, here it is.
He tried,
and then he basically tells them about the part,
and everybody's cool with it. Everybody's like, no, yeah, okay.
They weren't. At first, they were
you don't
like,
think so?
A group. You didn't know. If you go back, they're like, she was like, you're telling me a group of whales. It wasn't until she saw them.
Oh yeah,
and then she was like evasive maneuvers because they were all coming like, you know what I mean? Because he was like, you're not gonna believe it. And then sure enough, but he is fantastic. Yeah. He's great. I'm also hoping that because he was one of the people who saw Zeb, that like
that's what I'm saying.
Zeb?
Yeah.
Like, where's Zeb? Well, I mean, of course, we know that they're coming back from whatever galaxy they're in. They're
Yeah.
going to come back,
Yeah.
right? Because it only makes sense. Because there's no way. I will find it really hard to believe that we don't get them. Like, it's just,
especially that we know that he's out there. Like, everybody was gonna be like,
there's
yo,
no way. There's just no way. There's no way. Also, one of my so going to my favorites was the flashback scenes when they were going into the thing. It was seeing Rex when it was like, you know, hey Rex, like when she's like, I was like, oh, I was like, no, like, you know what I mean? Because again, Clone Wars had that relationship with Rex and Ahsoka. I mean, even the latest season of Clone Wars when they had the Ahsoka armor, like, it's gets you right into the feels. But that was amazing. And again, that shot that we were talking about when he goes in and he comes off of a very intense scene and he's basically like, no, like I'm breeding, like I need to breed warriors, like, you know what I mean? And then he goes in and then you just see the lightsaber change and then the mask, and then you hear you hear it too, because you hear the quick like it's perfect, like, you know what I mean? And even at the end of episode 4, when Anakin shows up and he's like, you know, hey Snips, like he shows up, and when it fades to black, do you notice that the Darth Vader music starts playing?
Yeah.
So like, it's just the attention to detail. It will never surprise me how great Dave Filoni is with that. But those were, I would say, was my favorite parts. But yeah, I think we about covered most of it. Obviously, we're going to have more to say for the next 3 episodes. We're going to do these weekly. So starting after this, that way we're not overwhelmed with the amount of things we have to talk about. So we're going to get these back. I think our weeks we'll kind of find our time frame for making these for you guys, because we do miss doing it. Chris and I talk about it all the time. So it's not like, you know, we do want to get this out there. And I know I've got friends who ask me, where's the like reviews? And trust me, we're in here. We're gonna get back on it because I want to talk about all this stuff again also. So I love doing it. But yeah, so that's gonna wrap it up for us. We will see you guys next week when we drop this for you. Just so you know, if you guys are listening to this one, we did have episode 1 and 2 of this also. So if you want to just kind of combine those and listen to them together, go ahead and do that also. But that one's in podcast form. So this one will have a video, so you guys can catch us on that. Please comment, like, do all that good stuff so we can know what you guys think about the episode, because we'll love to hear what you guys have to say also. And, you know, we can bring up some of the best comments in our next episode. So let us know what you guys think so we can hear it. We give you guys a shout out. You know, we're all down for that. And just if you ever want to be on here, just let us know. Email us, message us on our social medias. We'll have them in the links too, so you guys can find ways to contact us. All right. But until next time, may the force be with you, and Fire Team